Welcome. Thank you for joining me today at Heart to Heart Forged by Fire Inspiring Moments. Today, we're going to continue our series in living life abundantly. In spite of our current nation and global status, we're going to talk about how changing our mindset to attract what we desire is relevant even in our current state. Also, today we're going to discuss how we can lift up those who've been impacted, affected by unconscionable acts. Yes, I have a problem. Consciousness, unconscionable acts of self-terrorism. Yes, I'm going to break down that self-terrorism, how these acts can affect our mindset and what we unconsciously attract through our thoughts, our actions, and our behaviors. Let's get started. First, we're going to talk about the law of attraction and how it impacts our lives and why. How does the law of attraction work with God? I must include God because He is the creator of the law and its functions. These vibrations, many speak to Him, is Him moving by His Spirit. What Spirit? The Holy Spirit. As a believer in Christ, this law is prevalent and at work in our lives. My desire today is that you will gain more insight to the workings of the law of attraction and that how it is connected with the landscape between our two temples and how doubt, fear, and the enemy of our very souls want to steal the fruit and the outcomes of the law what it produces from the law within us and in our actions. He wants to steal these things from us. And then there are outside opposing forces that want to be contrary to profitable, healthy outcomes, prosperous. That's what I mean by profitable. It's not always money. It's not always tangibility of things and stuff and the accumulation thereof, but it is also with the fact of us being health. We've heard the saying, health is wealth. At least many of you may have. I know I have, that health is wealth. Well, let me tell you, in that fact, that's a part of prosperity. When we can live in safety and we can live in peace and we can understand that, listen, I can go out and I can go out at night and I'm assured that I'm going to return home safely. Unfortunately, in these times, that is not always the case for many and has not been the case for some. And so therefore, we want to understand it's not always gender related, but it seems to be more gender related in these present times and even in our past times. And yes, women and men are under attack, not just our Black men, but people of color are under attack. And this is what I mean by the selfish terrorism in our nation. But I don't want to jump ahead of myself. I want to get into that. So I want you to understand that these things, they really impact our very testimonies. They impact the way we live our lives. They impact, trials, and we're given testimonies through our trials and our tribulations. We're given victories as we overcome and defeat opposing circumstances in our lives and achieve our very goals and possess the very desires of our hearts. Spiritual growth begins when we realize God created the law of attraction. God's law of attraction works from the belief that the law of attraction isn't menacing, a menacing new age threat. It's not a menacing new age threat to God's way, nor his outcomes, nor how he moves supernaturally, but rather a natural law put in place by God himself to help us to transform into the persons and live our lives that he planned before we were even foredestined. Yes, we are predestined, and there was a predestined plan for each of our lives. I know some may believe that that's unfair because you didn't get a say in that, but that's not true. We have to work cooperatively with God to the outcomes of our lives. I'm going to say our creator. No, I respect many beliefs in faith, but I don't always agree with them because I understand there are some things that are not tied into God. There are some things that take us off course from our Creator. And so I want to talk with you today a little more in depth of how this law of attraction brings us into a place of living a life and having a life that is more abundant. What is abundance? What is abundantly? In our past series, we talked about what abundance is. And as I said previously, as I started, it's not the acquisition or possession or garnering things, not even people, not even money. And so those things don't make everybody happy. It doesn't. And at the end of the day, what do you have really to show if it is not bringing you joy and fulfillment and you're enjoying these things, but you just constantly work or live to keep possessing things? You work, you work, you work, you're wealthy, but your relationships aren't good. You can't trust anybody around you. You are overwhelmed, really, and nobody cares about you. They care about the things that you can give them or what they can gain as long as they're with you. And so what does that profit? What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? Well, I'm here to tell you, it profits you nothing. It profits you emptiness. It profits you despair. It profits you a life. When we think about it, I think of some of the stars, that have gone on. Hugh Hefner, how he died in seclusion and as a hermit. The man was quite wealthy, but it didn't give him life. It didn't bring him joy. It didn't bring him happiness. It didn't even bring him adventure anymore. It didn't bring and meet the needs that truly, those 6 basic needs inside of us, to be secure, to feel important, to feel a part of something, to be able to contribute. Yes, he contributed things to society, but at the end of the day, he didn't feel that he was acceptable. He felt everybody. He died in a paranoid state. He died in a schizophrenic state. And so when we look at those things, and I'm not saying he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, but I'm saying the outcomes of his behavior and how he moved and everything that he did, his behaviors of where it took him in the landscape between his 2 temples. The landscape between our 2 temples can bring many outcomes in our lives. We are impacted daily by news surrounding us, by society overwhelming us. And I've heard during this time of the movements and the marches and the deaths and everything that has gone on, some people really became overwhelmed. They became saddened, even to the point of depression, even to the point of fear, even to the point of being paralyzed. That's serious. So what do I want to tell you today? I want to tell you about this principle that can give us more life and more abundantly, so we don't come overwhelmed between the opposing forces that are outside of us. We can control what goes on within, which will then therefore impact what's outside of us. I'm not sure we're going to get through all of this today, but I promise you, we are going to do our best. And if so, we'll do another recording. And so I want you to know that there's a principle and actions that was taken on our behalf to achieve this in our life's journey. God, the word of God declares in John 10:10 that I've come that they might have life and that they may have it more abundantly. I want to go a little bit deeper with this. What is this saying? So the thief, John 10-14, this is what it says, and I'm going to break this down. The thief comes only in order to steal, kill, and destroy. But Jesus stated, I came that they may have and enjoy life and have it in abundance. What is abundance? It's to the full, till it overflows. It gives us laughter. The joy of the Lord is our strength. It girds us up in our minds. It girds us up in our hearts. You'll hear me speak to the first part of this scripture again later as we talk, and during our next recording, the time we meet again, if we don't get through this session. Yes, the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And then uplifting those from selfish terrorism, that's an enemy. Terrorism is an enemy. It's an enemy that comes to rob, kill, and destroy and dominate. It doesn't bring life. So I'm going to go on with this scripture. Now it says, Jesus pronounces that who he is to us. He says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his own life for the sheep. But the hired man, who merely serves for wages, who is neither the shepherd nor the owner of the sheep, when he sees the wolf, who is the enemy that is coming to steal, kill, and destroy, he's coming to take, he's coming to possess, he's coming to conquer, he's coming to kill, deserts the flock and runs away. And the wolf snatches the sheep and scatters them about. What have we seen in our news? What have we seen on the agenda of men? What have we seen perpetuated over and over again in lives right now? We've seen the scattering of the sheep. We've seen how the wolf has come to snatch, and that the one who should be shepherding and looking after the flock as a hired hand is not. They're scattering. They're going after their own selfish needs. It also says that this hired hand, they're not concerned about the safety of the sheep. They're not concerned. These sheep are people. This is a metaphoric statement which is referring to us. It says, Jesus said further that I am the good shepherd, and I know without any doubt those who are my own, and my own know me and have a deep personal relationship with me. This is the first principle that gets us to a state of abundance, first in our mindset, first in our atmosphere, first in our surroundings. Even in the midst of chaos, we can have joy. Even in the midst of chaos, we can have a peace which surpasses all understanding, which mounts guard and garrison. That means to lock in over our minds and our heart. We can sleep good at night without feeling anxious or having anxiety or going into a state of manic depression. We can overcome. We can overcome. We can impact our nations and our community to change. We can understand and see the good in somebody because we can discern. Why? Because we can hear the voice of the good shepherd, and the good shepherd is with us, and we know him. We know his ways, and so we want to be more like him. We don't want to prejudge somebody as a whole, because my grandmother would always say it's a few apples that go bad that spoil the whole barrel. And so what else can I say to you today? Now, I know some of you may be asking, what does this have to do with the law of attraction? Well, it first starts with God, since he designed it and activated it in our universe. And he is the true power behind it. And as his children, we are empowered by his spirit in its activation, and its outcomes are ours. The human mind is a vast source of energy and power. We must keep our hand on the steering wheel of that power and guide it on the course to positive outcomes on our behalves and the lives, yes, those who are connected to us, and even those we don't even know intimately or personally. How can we do this? Just as cogs in a machine aid it in its function, we have been designed with free will, which empowers this engine. Let me explain what I mean. We can choose good or evil. We can choose success or victory. We can choose life or death. In other words, we can choose success or victory or defeat. We can be contributors, or we can be greedy and take everything and be manipulative and maniacal to take from those who don't even have. We can misuse our authority or use it to crush others, or we can use our authority to uplift others and to aid them in their progression. Oh, yes, we can steer our minds in the right direction. If we're not careful, they can challenge our outcomes because of what we think between our two temples and what we set our minds on. It's like turning a dial, either good or evil, good or evil. We can guide the outcomes of what we choose to think on. We can guide the outcomes by what we choose to rest our minds and meditate on daily. We can choose the outcomes for others and our engagement with them by what we take in and what we let remain and rest in our hearts. Let me pause for a moment and ask you, what does abundance look like to you? In our life and the lives of others, what does it look like to you? Let's step out of our bubbles and steer them to others to connect. What do you desire for your neighborhood, for your neighbor, for your community, for our world? What is your desire? See, the law of attraction is just not for us, but it's also for others. It's also to aid others. It's also to help those who are less fortunate. Jesus said the poor will remain amongst us. But what are we going to do? There will be those who need food. There will be those who need clothing. There will be those who need to be visited while sick and taken care of. There will be those. But will you be short-sighted? There will be those who are in prison. There will be those who have great needs, those who are suffering. But what choice will you make? Will you decide to close your doors because it's chaotic outside? Or will you choose to say, you know what? I'm going to keep going. I'm going to step out and steer my bubble to connect with somebody else. And I'm going to be determined that I'm going to serve others. I'm going to be determined that I'm going to contribute to somebody. I'm going to be determined that I won't see the color of somebody's skin, but I will see the man or the woman or the child for who they are. I will choose my behavior and I won't let it be guided or influenced by negativity, by others or outside opposing forces. I will choose to do better. I choose the way I go, and I'm going to choose how I affect others. Many have laid claim that the law of attraction isn't a true statement. As such have been made that this combination of positive thought and positive emotion is believed to allow one to attract positive experience and opportunities by achieving renaissance with a proposed energetic law that they're claiming. The law of attraction has no scientific basis and has been dubbed a pseudoscience. But I'm here to tell you that's not the truth. I want you to understand something. If I choose not to concur with this statement, I don't concur with this statement, but I choose that it's not the truth. Because I've experienced this law at work in my own life many times over, and I've seen it at work in others' life. The architecture of the universe didn't build a staircase to nowhere, but he built it so we could become conquerors, that we could leap over walls, that we could run through troops, that the enemy was coming after us. We could defeat this enemy. And we could slay the giants in the land that point their sword to defeat the nations as one body, unified. We can rise and defeat the very things that plan to take our lives and crush us under their feet and laugh and make jokes on us. But it's a joke on them. The joke is really on them because we, unified, will rise and overcome as we have many times over and again and again. A quick testimony. In 2014, I became physically ill. I was accused of a horrific thing. In the midst of this time, my heart broke, not from the illness, but from the accusation that was made against me by those I held dear and trusted. As a leader, I still had to lead our team, from my hospital bed. I had to give instructions on what to do and how to serve others, how to move, and how to go about partnering and carrying out what had been put in place. I had to continue to experience what I was going through, but we needed to continue to serve those who were experiencing and had great needs. Yes, they had economic disparities, socioeconomic prejudices. Many of them needed, even down to having food insecurity in their houses was the greatest need. But there were many, many needs that we needed to answer. Things had been put in place. We had what we needed, and then this came about. After overcoming 5 blood clots in my lungs, my colon perforated in 2 places. It had been perforated for 2 days prior. My doctor is a faithful man. He's a man of faith. And so is his wife, who was in a practice with him. And they were praying, and he told my mother, he said, as I was praying, he had decided to do an X-ray. And I had not, and I'm not trying to be foul or nasty or sharing TMI, but I hadn't gone to the bathroom to make a bowel movement in a week that I was in the hospital. And no matter what medication they gave me, or no matter what they decided to try to get me to pass, it did not work. But in the meantime of this preparation, it was 2 days prior to me exiting the hospital and coming home. My body and cavity was swelling with air. Now, I should have gone septic, but I never did. That was a miracle, and that was God. I didn't allow myself to become overwhelmed, but I want to tell you the pain was beyond what I can even think. It was beyond the pain of childbirth. It was excruciating to the point where I'm not a crier, but I cried. On that bed, I asked God, what is going on? Why, Lord? I'm about to go home. What is happening right now? I cried out to him. And you know, God gave the answers. He told my doctor, do an MRI. He said he kept hearing it over and over and over again. Do an MRI. He said he was glad that he followed the instructions of God. He brought me back in. See, the X-ray could only show the stool that was impacting in my intestines. It didn't show the perforations, but the MRI showed where the perforations were in 2 places. It even showed that they had happened 2 days prior. And it showed that my cavity was filling with air and I had to go in immediate surgery. When he came to deliver the news, I was calm. I had felt a peace come over me. And yes, they had given me some pain medication to take off the edge, but I was still in pain, but I found myself at peace. And when I asked for our friend, the general surgeon, who was well known to come in and take care of me, he came, and by the time he got there, my friends had arrived at the hospital with their daughter, and things were happening so fast. One of my friends told me they had come to get me, and I had to tell them, I can't go home right now. I have to go to surgery. And they said, stop playing. There's no way. You look good. Now I'm in pain. And they're saying, I look good. They're saying it can't be. And when the doctor came in, we started laughing and talking. And he said, well, you know, I got to tell you, I can't do the surgery because we don't have the equipment to override your heart and your lungs if they stop. That's how serious this was. They sat there awed. He said, immediately, I'm calling the hospital. I'm getting everything set up. And they said everything was happening so fast. But to me, it was like time had slowed down. My mind began to think on God. My mind began to think on the peace that, Lord, you have me in your hands, because with 5 embolisms for the last month or whatever period of time, I had them for weeks, could have killed me. But you decided no. Okay. I got my green light and I said yes to the surgery. I remember them giving me something to make me comfortable. And when my brother and sister came into the hospital, my brother-in-law thought I had passed because I was resting. And I remember my friends telling me, they were saying to him, stop crying, she's not dead, she's gonna be all right. Hold on. She's holding to God's hand. I was rushed to University of Maryland Hospital, where I was taken straight into the bay. And they said when I came into the bay, I had a light shining about me. I had a calmness and a peace that was affecting those in that room. And she said, I know you must be a believer. You see, what was resting in my heart was impacting those outside of me. I have a covenant ring that I wear because I have a covenant and a love with the Lord. He's my first love. He's husbands me. And I remember them saying I had to remove it before I went. I said, are you sure? And they said, I promise you, nothing will happen. They said, you're ready. We know. We see the peace on you. We need you to sign these. And I just signed them. Do you have questions? I said, no. She said, you know everything is going to be all right. I don't even have to tell you that. And from that moment, 2.5 months later, I remained in the hospital 15, 12, I don't even know, surgeries later. I lost my ability to walk. I lost my ability to sit up. I lost my ability to stand on my own, to comb my own hair, to dress my own self, to bathe my own self. But I still had a peace. And every time the doctors would come past the intensive care unit, even though I had coded and I thought I woke up, but I didn't. I was in a coma for 2.5 weeks. I woke up and closed my eyes on a Saturday, and I woke up on a Sunday thinking it just had been overnight, but it had been 2.5 weeks. And in that time, they said I was in a coma, and I coded and kept coding. And my family was told that you need to be realistic. You need to prepare. She's going to die. She's not going to make it. They say my son, who was in college going through law school, stayed at my bedside for 3 days praying. And many prayed. And then the doctors told them they don't bring anybody in anymore because she keeps trying to talk. And when I came out of the coma, they intubated me again and put me back in the coma because my heart rate kept dropping and flying up and I was cold. But God, I'm here before you today. I have the ability of my limbs. I learned to walk. But what does this have to do with the law of attraction? Well, while I was in rehab, my family was praying. My family decided to believe. My family, yes, they did start preparing. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that. But they said, okay, we're preparing, but we do not believe she's going to die. We are standing and hoping on the Lord. So they kept praying and they kept trusting his promises that I would stay around, that I would stick around to finish it out. Well, 2.5 months later, I went into rehab. I couldn't walk, as I said. I couldn't even dress my own self. I began to gain back my strength and began to use my limbs. I couldn't even go to the bathroom on my own. But then I began to change and transform. I began to gain strength and my body began to heal. And I remember while I was in this little nursing home and the Lord showed me that I was going to walk again. He showed me that I was going to be able to continue the journey. He said to me, you're going to walk again. Believe and trust me. Don't doubt, don't fear. Don't believe in the facts that you see and what's being told to you. But you're going to walk again. Trust me. Believe me. In the midst of taking on this and learning how to walk again and learning how to eat again, overcoming pain, I had to think on and remember what he had told me. I had to remember that I would walk again. I had to remember that I would be able to take care of my own self. And in the midst of this, he asked me something. He asked me to lead community officials to implement a hub program, a community hub program, while I was still healing. I was just learning how to walk. I said, God, I can't even walk. You want me to do this? I don't care about no money. But he said, do it. You know what to do. They don't. And in the midst, I had a conference call In the midst, I had to give them instructions. In the midst, I had to be driven to the actual meeting, and I was walking with a cane. I could not even drive my own self yet, but God. My mindset had to be that my legs would work, that I would gain my core strength back, that I could do this. You see, what is it? Just as those facts in that moment, the law of attraction changes those facts into a true reality. It alters and transforms the current reality for us. You see, through the frustration and the doubt and the fear and the thoughts and the voice of the enemy that plague me, that you'll never walk again. You'll never be able to do anything for yourself. You won't fulfill what you're called to do. You're worthless. The pain of it all. That voice said, give up. Everybody will understand. It's okay. But the determination of the one inside of me kept speaking, you can, believe me, trust me, I have better for you. I'm not going to fulfill on my promises. One of my favorite scriptures is this: blessed is she who has believed that the Lord will fulfill his promises to her. Well, it's not just gender-based, but blessed is all who believe that the Lord will fulfill his promises to them. Now, everything that happens to us is not always a result of our thoughts, but it will test our faith like fire tries and purifies gold. God is our refuge and our strength and an ever-present help in times of trouble. Psalms 46:1. This takes me into the next part of our topic, selfish terrorism. Selfish terrorism is an unconscionable act to acknowledge the rights and care and privileges of others. It is the greed and deliberate ignorance that other lives don't matter just as much as theirs, as yours, as someone else's. I want to give you 3 definitions of selfishness. It's being concerned excessively or exclusively with oneself, seeking or concentrating on one's own advantage, pleasures, or well-being without regard for others. The second part, number 2, is it's arising from concern. It's with one's own welfare or advantage in disregard for others. 3, it is a selfish act, being an actively replicating repetitive sequence of nucleic acid. Yes, being an actively replicating repetitive sequence of nucleic acid that serves no known function. Something acidic to this degree over time destroys whatever it comes in contact with. Can you imagine? Selfish terrorism does this. It destroys over a period of time what it comes in contact with. It can be characterized as a selfish DNA, also being genetic material solely concerned with its own replication. Yes, it is like an anomaly, a virus eating, like the coronavirus, that takes over and begins and was melting the children's organs. Yes, selfish terrorism is an act by people. And yes, there are some selfish terrorists around us, stealing lives and perpetuating selfish outcome. Now, let's define terrorism. Terrorism is the use of fear and acts of violence in order to intimidate societies, governments, or against an ideology. Common definitions of terrorism refer to violent acts which are intended to create fear, terror, or terrorize. Unfortunately, we don't see this, unfortunately, in these moments. We see this in our society coming from forces outside, but it is within our communities. It is being enacted and carried out by those who've been entrusted for our safety. It's being carried out by those who were called to govern over our nations and our cities and our communities. Remember, we're speaking to the law of attraction. It is unfortunate that these very things we desire and are designed and greedily desire with no regard for others. Yes, the law of attraction works in reverse too. You see, and it's perpetuating the loss of life. Yes, whatever a man so thinketh, he is and truly becomes, but our lives aren't a silo. They interact and trickle over to impact the outcomes for others. Others' lives, dividing and taking loved ones from others when we don't proactively take in consideration our selfish desires, our misuse or abuse of the authority that we've been given. When we turn and we won't aid, support those in need, and respect those around us. And in Ezekiel 16 and 23 through 29, we see how the leaders of this time, which applies to today, have become like pagan leaders. We attract who we are. Notice necessarily what we want and think on the following. I ask that you think on the following things. We do attract who we are. We do attract outcomes and perpetuate these things and these outcomes. We attract these waves of terror to us, and we engage in them and perpetuate them. They change our behaviors. They become manipulating. They become maniacal. We can become a weapon if we're not careful for the bad, for destruction, for taking away life. It's not necessarily what we want, but many times, sometimes it is what we want because we feel that we're superior to other races or other people or other situations or other statuses of people who are living at different income brackets. We feel we're superior, so we have no compassion. We feel we're superior and I'm better than you. I ask that you think on the following things. Attraction. We tend to attract what is in the recesses of our hearts and those similar to us. Who are you really? And what lies at the base of your heart? What has infiltrated unknowingly? Yes, I'm speaking to all that I have become easily, who have become easily entangled, easily beset with the things that rob them and cause them to take others' lives. What has captured and enslaved you? What has caused you to stand against what is right? What is the good thing to do? What is just? What is righteous? Instead, you're serving unjustly. You're not standing for the things that which are noble and pure and giving life. You're taking it instead. But I ask you to renounce these things. Turn to life-giving practices. Turn away from things that would steal the good from you and others around you, especially those that you may have been called to lead. Secondly, we tend to reflect what or who leads us, or what is following us, or those following. Who's following you? What's following you? Who's following you after you for generational outcomes? Let's break off the negativity and the negative cycle that destroys and perpetuates the outcomes which are catastrophic, and take life, not give life, not uplift, not uphold, but it tears down. Let's change the course for better and a brighter future. Let's give life and hope. Let's restore hope. Let's restore community. Let's restore peace. There are repercussions for what we do, and what we sow, we do reap. We will face similar consequences to the acts we carry out, and those who follow will too. See, in generations past, there were outcomes. There's a chance to decide that we don't have to continue to be divided by fascist mindsets, actions, political forces that seek selfish gain, hate, and prejudice. We can rise just as we have in the past. Let's do it again and become more than conquerors through him who loves us greatly. I challenge you to take a moment to step back. Take a moment to do the following. Think on these things and meditate on them. Examine your heart. If there's prejudice, hate, pettiness, or negativity, cut the fetters off. Cut them out. Cut it away from you. Cut it away from the landscape between your two temples. These are landmines that will affect your outcomes and all that you're connected with. Secondly, utilize your courage and your vertical relationship to change your present and future, because it will take courage to think positively, to change your perception of the current circumstances in your life, your environment, your atmosphere, your surroundings. What can you do to aid, support, and help and change others and make life a better time? Maybe you can do it for you, but you can also do it for everyone else too. But what about you and those connected with you? Don't be selfish. Think about everybody around you, and this includes those in your neighborhood. Don't just think about your silo and your cocoon and your nucleus, but go outside of you. We are a part of one another, and we are to bear one another's burdens. Let us uplift and grab somebody's hand to uplift them. Thirdly, be willing to pay the price of change. It's not overnight that it happens, but bit by bit. And a mountain becomes level, a level playing field, bit by bit, one pebble at a time, one rock at a time, one grain at a time. It becomes a level playing field. Develop a plan of action. Yes, go to those seats of planning. Get out there. Make your voices echo. If you need to get on a call, do community roundtables. Come together with community leaders and activists. I'm not saying get on hate agendas. Make sure you know what you're joining up with before you actually get on board. You don't want to be associated with something that you don't believe in and that's going to the left and really not perpetuating positiveness, really not perpetuating positive life outcomes for everyone, prosperous outcomes, healthy outcomes, well-being outcomes for others. Set a plan of action with clear goals and resources needed to complete your goals that you set. How can you impact change right where you are? Lastly, God wants this for you, and he wants it for us. The law of attraction works with these key ingredients. I can do all things through Christ Jesus, who strengthens me. Philippians 4:13. Positive thinking is optimism, visualization, belief, thinking on things that bring and promote life, unity, kindness, love, consideration of others, self-control, bearing with others. Love bears with others, and it keeps no account of suffered wrongs. Understanding, sensitivity to others and their feelings and their emotions. Take time out to become aware of others' needs. Become aware, sit and have a conversation. Contribution, contribute, give back to your communities. Give back through your work. Give back through your abilities. Give back through your gifts. Give back through your skills. Believing the best before we pass judgment on somebody else. Find out their plight. Find out their circumstances. Yeah, they may not want to share with you, but it's nothing like getting a key to someone's heart, and that's through action. People don't want to know what you can do. They want to know if you really care. Start caring. That's an ingredient to the law of attraction. Promote life. Be a peacemaker. Extend the olive branch of peace. Yeah, everybody won't take it, but many will. Another thing is, don't deflect your stress and anger on others. Become a manager of your emotions and your personal matters. Get awareness of self and what you feel, and then you might be sensitive to what others feel. Do stress management and self-care. Practice leisure and relaxation so that when complicated and chaotic situations arise, you can not just react out of adrenaline, but you can respond appropriately. Meditate. Meditate on that which will make your way successful and prosperous, but not just you. It will also make others you come in contact with successful and prosperous also. Be one to promote peace and calm within yourself. And if you do that, it will reflect outside. Remember my testimony. I was in the hospital, and my testimony, my life, impacted those around me. The doctor came in, he said, "You may not remember me, but I remember you. You're like an old Studebaker I had." He said, "I hate to reference you to a car, but that car was lasted. It was enduring. It never gave out or gave up on me. It continued to get me from A to B. It lasted." He said, "I've seen you and you remind me of it. You're constantly enduring. No matter what you've experienced, good, bad, ugly, and indifferent, you have never cussed anybody out. You haven't screamed. You haven't yelled. But I've seen the peace in you. I've seen your contentment. I see this glow about you." At one point, they thought I was depressed and sent in the chaplains and the psychologists to talk to me because I would just sit there. But they didn't know that I was meditating and thinking on the goodness of the Lord. I was at peace, even though my surroundings and what was happening to me, well, you would have thought there's no peace in this situation. Where's the good in this situation? But there was plenty of good. There was plenty of grace. The Lord was being merciful and kind to me. There were those who I was grateful for that was taking care of me, praying for me, coming to see me, uplifting me, carrying forward the mission, even though I wasn't there. My child was determined to get his degree. My daughter was taking care of the household and still moving to get her degree. You see, I had something to hope in. And even though I had been hurt and my heart was broken, God was fixing my heart and fixing the situation. So I need you to understand connection first spiritually to someone greater than me and greater than you. Connect to that one and you'll get those outcomes. I hope this discussion has inspired you today and has given you some food for thought. I look forward to you joining me again and my guests next time as we revisit this topic in a few more episodes. So tune in and chime in. We want to hear your thoughts on your current state of our nation and hear how you're faring in it all. Note, if we can aid you in any way, please don't hesitate to contact us and reach out. And kindly remember, all have opinions. Therefore, I ask that you remain respectful. No hate littering will be given credence here. Many blessings to you and your families out there. Do your best to stay safe, and may God keep between us till we meet again. Blessings to you all. I love you, and I thank you for joining Heart to Heart, Forged by Fire, Inspiring Moments.